What's up? Welcome back to the State of the Arc podcast. My name is Mike.
My name is Kason.
We do not have TJ, the Emperor, with us today.
So sad.
We generally record these on Thursday evenings.
Yes.
Kason was super busy. This has happened to me too.
This happens
times.
all the time.
Traveling or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And so we couldn't do it yesterday. And TJ was traveling today. So he's out of town.
How about that?
For the weekend. So he'll rejoin us again in a future episode. But I think we can hold the fort until he returns, even though we've never played this game before. We ended last episode with Ziggy and Momo escaping from that. What was that? What did they even call that thing?
It's the coolest thing, but it's like, I don't know what it's called. It used to be, it's an old religious relic.
Yes.
Whatever it is, it's like, it used to be have some religious purpose.
That's all I know.
Yeah.
And it looks kind of like a crossy looking
something
shape.
like that. Yeah, maybe like a star-ish with like a long...
Like a space station.
Yes, also a bit like the Skyhook from... Shadows of the Empire.
Yep, Shadows of the Empire.
Yeah.
That's right.
Skyhook, but this one looks more like it's made of rock and not so much like metal.
Yeah, right.
Right, so it looks like it's a
Or
piece
some
of a planet.
kind of element.
Something that looks maybe a little less, well, a little more natural, I'd say.
Yeah, natural then.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. We talked about how Ziggy had sensed or noticed something, and we kept looking at the footage to try to find out what he was looking at.
Yes, and I couldn't see nothing.
Couldn't see anything.
Yeah, that was funny.
He sort of, but we talked about how it goes. The reason why we were both kind of perplexed by this is because he returns to that again. So it's not just happens in the moment.
And then on their departure, he flashes back, and we're still at that point. It's like we have to be seeing something. We have to.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he's like remembering, sensing something that he couldn't quite figure out.
Yeah.
I can't see anything in the flashback.
Yeah, TJ said, well, all will be be in due time.
In due time.
But we like our predictions, right?
Yeah. So
couldn't see anything.
Anyway, he says to Momo, find a trade column and short jump us out of here. I want to get back to our return path once we shake off the pursuit. So they are being pursued by ships from enemy forces. And
Momo can like connect right in with the ship.
Yep.
Right? Almost just with her mind. She connects, and she's more or less driving it just with her mind. That's pretty cool.
Yep. So they jump. And we kind of go back and forth between Momo and Ziggy.
Yeah, a couple times.
Being chased, and then like, joshing around back on the ship.
Yeah.
Back and forth a little bit. So when we go back to the Elsa, we have Shion and Matthews, Tony, Alan for sure. I don't know. Is Hammer there? I can't remember if Hammer's also there.
I can't remember.
I think it's just the four of them. I think it's Tony, Matthews, and then Alan and Shion. But I'll put the freaking game on screen so we'll know exactly how many people there. She made some kind of meal that they're all eating.
And they're all super stoked because they just eat like garbage. Like they don't eat well at all. And she shows up, and they have their own like kitchen on this like a really nice looking diner.
Like a mess hall.
Yeah. But I don't know, it looks more like a restaurant. It looks nice. But they, I guess, just whoever cooks, and it's like nothing. But then she shows up, and she's cooking like this special dish. So they talk about like the presence of a woman being on board.
Yeah,
it's like,
it's kind of weird.
It creates a different dynamic and all that stuff. Yeah.
It's like, dudes, you can cook as well. Like, anybody can learn to cook. Let's see. So, yeah, they're kind of just joking back and forth about that. Matthews continues to almost like insist that like he doesn't think it's good while he keeps eating it. Like
he's like, don't bother a man while he's eating.
Yeah, exactly.
And they're like, that's so funny. But he's way into his food.
Yeah. Matthews, I took a note here. Matthews asks for water, and Alan timidly asks if he can have some too. Right? Can I also have some? Yeah. And Shion apologizes and says she hadn't noticed that his glass was empty. This bothers him. So this is kind of Alan's thing that they've built up.
This is going to be a running joke.
Yeah, like Alan, everybody just sort of overlooks Alan. This is like Alan's personality trait for the moment.
Yes, and it bothers him, but he just doesn't have any presence, I guess. Yeah. And he always has this worried look about him. Every time you see him, he's he just looks a little worried.
Yeah.
Little like he doesn't really know what's going on or if he's should be where he is at the moment or not.
Yeah.
It's funny.
He lacks confidence.
Yes, very much so.
But he's not incompetent. I think that of all the characters we've seen so far, he seems to act the most rationally of anybody.
Oh, yes. He's very rational. That's for sure. As far as competence goes, this is so funny because there's a scene later on where I can't remember their names. So which one's Hammer? Is Hammer the guy who looks like Justin Bieber?
So, well, they kind of both do, but Tony...
I mean, which one's wearing a wife beater and which one has
Tony is the wife beater, like, pilot.
Okay, and Hammer
is the navigator.
The nerd dude.
Yes.
You're right, they both look like Justin Bieber. Okay, Tony looks very young. That's true. That is true.
Yes.
Okay, so Tony brings up, I'll go with Alan, but I'm not sure what his actual use is. Like, I don't know how useful he is. It's really funny.
Yeah. And Hammer's kind of the mechanic of the ship too, so he'll he does repairs. He's the navigator, so I guess he's the one like charting courses, and then Tony's the one who actually flies the thing, and then Matthews is like the captain, and then we've got Chaos, of course. But
okay, gotcha.
Okay, so I took another note here. There's no use crying over spilled milk, which I think Shion says to Alan in regards to him talking about the tragedy that just unfolded with the Gnosis attack and all their comrades and crewmates dying.
Yeah,
and I was stung by how insensitive a remark. There's no use in crying over spilled milk is in regards to that.
What a baby, Alan. Grow a spine, dude. Like, what's your deal, man?
Oh my gosh, dude! I was like, oh wow. Now, from what I've heard, this hasn't been the case for me so far. Like, I like Shion just fine as a character at this point. I think she's a good character. From what I've seen so far, but it seems to me like there's a sentiment among people who've played Xenosaga that she's a really annoying character, and it's lines like this that maybe are starting to illuminate a little bit of the reason why. Like, she just seems pretty insensitive at times. Not like maliciously, but just, I don't know, almost like she doesn't have the social awareness to know that that's not what you say about, I don't know how many crew members were on that ship that died.
All of them, I think, right? There's a couple hundred, couple thousand. To a point that TJ had made earlier, it does seem as though Shion has trouble connecting with other humans, and she'd much rather spend her time with robots. So that definitely could be the source of a lot of the awkwardness. Yeah.
I think that's true, and sure, I guess you could see that as being like, oh, it's annoying, but it's part of it's a purposeful thing for the characters.
It makes sense.
It's clearly meant to be that way, right?
Yeah.
So, she also, this is the comment I think we had touched on a little bit in the last episode, but we didn't get up to this point, where she calls him a racist.
Oh, right.
Because he was being suspicious about the crew of this ship, the Matthews and Tony and Hammer.
Right.
He had done some kind of research on them or looked into the ship logs or whatever he had done. He had found out that they're associated with this Kukai Foundation. He says, that place is bad news. I heard rumor that it's just crawling with mutants. Now, because you had said this in the last episode too. Mm-hmm. Like, why is this comment racist? Are we talking about like racism against mutants?
Right.
I think because I believe these experiments or the Kukai Foundation is from Milsha, which is the planet or original Milsha or old Milsha, the one that is not there.
Milsha anymore. 1.
Yeah, where the tragedy happened or whatever.
Yeah.
I think that's where the Kukai Foundation was like doing these experiments, and so I got the sense at first, like, racism against mutants. I was a little confused, but I think what she's talking about is the Kukai Foundation. His sentiments are racist toward Miltians who did this, if that makes sense.
Got you. I don't know really what to
I don't know
add
either.
to that, but we'll find out more, I suppose.
I don't know either, but like it was a little bit hard to parse what she was talking about in terms of the accusation of racism towards him, whether she's upset that he's referring to these people as mutants, or whether she's referring to the people of the planet who do this kind of stuff, or who are involved in Kukai Foundation, or that he's suspicious of them basically just because, I don't know. It was a weird comment.
Racism implies some genetic something or other. I mean, I just don't know what exactly is going on here. It could be we see the Kukai and then they're, all of a very obvious race. Yeah, right. And it's like, okay, now the racism accusation makes sense, but I just don't know anything about them. So it's just a weird thing right there.
Now, I'm going to address this real quick too. This is something that we've had some people commenting on in the comments. The once or twice I've decided to go look at them. People keep telling us, read the database, read the database, read the database.
Okay.
So yes.
How long is it? I don't have forever. I mean, I don't know. There's a reason why the Xenogear one was like 21 episodes or something like that. Yeah. Like, we can't play for too long every day. I could probably, even at work, I could probably just read the database though.
Yes. I've been thinking that
maybe next week.
So these notes are a little bit old. I haven't gone back to my playthrough in a few days because we got a little bit ahead and everything like that. So at the time I saw that comment, I was like, oh yeah, there's this whole database thing.
Yeah, it exists.
That we could probably be looking through. This brings up the whole kind of... it's interesting. I guess I just wanted to ask you this real quick, because this is a whole controversy in, say, Final Fantasy 13, which is that you have to spend so much time reading data logs to understand the world building, and there are some people who feel that information should be given through exposition or through the storyline, not through sort of an optional choice on the player's part to just go digging through paragraphs of text in this data log to learn about how the world works. That's not the first thing I want to do while I'm playing Xenosaga is I don't know what the Kukai Foundation is. Take pause after this long cutscene and just go read. But I do think that we can probably do a better job when I have questions like this in my notes to just go straight to the wiki or the database. Because it's not like I have this question about everything. It's just in certain instances, I'm confused. What's she talking about? Who's he racist against? Are the Kukai a race or are they just a company?
Well, and I really wish I paid more attention to the Japanese word used there.
Sure.
It could have been something a lot less, what would the word be? A lot less powerful of a word than the charge of racism. It could have been something more, it could have been something a little bit different.
Yeah.
In fact, I don't know the word for racism in Japanese.
You're playing the game in Japanese.
I am, yes.
Right? Okay.
I have a few notes in Japanese later on.
Okay, cool. Okay. In that case, we'll just move on from that note.
Okay.
Well, they did bring up Species Preservation Act again.
Yes, the Species Preservation Act, which enables the ability to revive dead people, right?
Yeah.
They call it a species. That's just interesting.
Yeah.
That makes me think that it started out as something used for animals, and it slowly grew to encompass humans, at least in part because as the technology progresses and as humans learn that they're not that different from animals, they just become seen as animals in a different way.
I think what Alan says here is... Sure, it's a well-known fact that the Kukai Foundation... Oh, no, wait, this is Shion talking, I think. It's a well-known fact the Kukai Foundation was established by the Miltian government, so it is a Miltian government organization.
Is Shion a Miltian? I know she lived in Miltia, but is she a Miltian?
I believe she is natively born on Miltia.
Okay.
I believe.
So she's a Miltian, so he's racist against her?
That's the sense that I got. Because it didn't make sense otherwise.
Okay. All right.
But anyways.
All right.
The Kukai Foundation was established by the Miltian government as a specialized military group, but they only held the status until the completion of the post-war proceedings.
Right.
Although they haven't gotten around to demilitarizing quite yet, they've been run like any other valid foundation nowadays. So it was
So she's defending the company.
Yes.
So
she's
it's like,
defending
oh,
the Kukai Foundation.
I don't like these people. You're racist, and the company's just perfect. It's like saying, oh, I don't like Apple and it's like, no, you're racist. Right? I'm like, okay. But really, I don't like Apple. like the product, like the things, the
organization itself is what he's complaining about, and she's I don't know. Anyway, I don't get hung up on that too much.
I don't either because we don't know, and we're just talking in
circles. Although they haven't quite gone around to. Okay, I read that part. As a matter of fact, their current director received a lot of praise for taking in and protecting victims in the days before the Species Preservation Act. He's really to be commended. Now, this guy's name was Geigen Kunkai, who founded the Kunkai Foundation. So,
Geigen, and there is a backstory to that. Geigen is the name of a character from a French legend called the Sword of Roland.
Oh, wow.
The Legend of Roland. It's from France, and I don't have this for quite a while because, anyways, we meet other people with a similar name.
Sure.
And, there's a couple references to what's it called? I can't remember exactly what it's called, but it's something about Roland, right? So it's the Legend of Roland, right? And it was written like 1,000 years ago. And it's an old French thing. It's like their version of King Arthur. There's like a special sword. The sword in this legend is called Durandal. Anyways, we see some interesting things about the Durandal a little bit later on. Also, so there's a few references to this legend. Yes, Durandal is in the game, and there's a few references to that specific legend. So I'm going to go read that legend, and maybe next week cause some insights.
We should probably do that for next week. Yeah,
and it's called something about Roland, the Sword of Roland, or something like that.
So then we get Chaos coming in, and he asks where KOS MOS went.
Yeah. And also, I think it had been brought up as well, like, oh yeah, Cherenkov's not here. Oh, I miss him,
Right, because
where'd he go?
They had eaten, and it's like, oh, the commander needs to have food too. I'll take some food to him. So she's going to take him a hot plate, basically. And, Chaos kind of comes in. He's curious about where KOS MOS is.
Yep.
Shion says that she's being tuned up or repowered or whatever down in another room. By that, if he wants to talk to her or something like that, he's free to do that. And he's like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll do that. And so he takes off. When he gets down there into the place where she's sort of laying down in a maintenance bed.
Yeah,
sort of, recharging, I guess.
A dentist chair.
And what he says is, so we finally meet. So where does the real you exist?
Yes, that's my note here. Where is the real you? Where does the real you exist? Like, there's a reality, there's a sentience to KOS MOS, and it exists in a place that is somewhere else, right? Yes. That is not where we are. That is not where she is, right? Then my thought just kind of goes to that little girl, the angel girl that Shion keeps seeing, that somehow is related to KOS MOS in some way, I think, unless... Because it's kind of hard to tell, because you've got Shion, and she's always around KOS MOS. And then you have this girl that she sees in dreams. And I guess I associate the two somewhat without reason, because it's like, oh, there's KOS MOS, but then there's the angel. I kind of assume that they're maybe a similar, being, I guess.
Yeah.
But I don't have that for sure. That's just my guess.
Yeah. There was somebody in the comments, too, who brought up that the little girl looks suspiciously like Ellie or Elheim from Xenogears.
I do see that.
I don't know if that adds to your theory or not.
Shion looks like Ellie too. I don't know, the hair color.
In a certain way.
I don't know.
Okay, so anyways, we've already talked about how mysterious Chaos is, generally speaking.
Yeah,
but this kind of ramps it up even more. Knowing
it does. So he knows stuff.
Yeah, about KOS MOS. Then the scene gets even crazier because, as Chaos is on the way out, Cherenkov comes in.
Yeah.
And Chaos sticks behind a little bit to, look back and kind of listen in. But Cherenkov is, he's losing his cool, quite a bit.
Yep.
And even going back onto the... I'm never going to get the name of this ship right.
The Woglinde.
Woglinde.
Yes.
Even going back to there, when he was communicating with Margulis on the intercom, when Margulis brought up, like, you have the weapon with you, like, if a Gnosis attacks, like, at least you've got that.
Right.
He freaked out.
Yeah.
Freaked out.
He's like, I don't want to have anything to do with that.
Yeah, because it's not been through any field testing, is what he says.
Ah, yes.
So, like, he's really concerned about Cosmos. And he's getting really nervous around her here. We see a flashback where a hooded man gives him, I wrote, a hooded man gives him a gamepad, because it's exactly what it looks like.
I know. It's like half of one, though. It's like a half of one. And you see you see Xion use this a little bit later on.
Yeah.
And it kind of displays information, right?
Yeah.
It's like a thing that can be used. It probably has multiple uses. But yeah, at least in part, it's like half of a gamepad.
That's exactly what it looks like.
Yeah.
It's got like a D-pad in it.
It even has a D-pad, just great. Which I guess, I mean, there is a practical utility in something like that if you're navigating or moving things around. But still, it's a game. It's a gamepad.
It's a game controller.
Yeah.
So then we go inside of this facility after he's been given this instrument, whatever it is, and it's being taken over by soldiers from the UTIC organization. Is this the first time we've heard UTIC or not?
I believe we had heard it before, but this is the first time we're seeing something a little more specific about it. Yeah. But we'd heard it before because I brought up that a tick is a parasite.
That's right.
And a parasite is a vector for a disease.
Right. I remember that.
Anyways.
So, UTIC organization.
Yeah. And you are the tick. The parasite is you.
That's what it is. So it shows Xion and I don't remember if I saw Alan in here. But
Kevin, maybe
Kevin, I thought I saw Kevin in
the
here.
Previous.
Anyways,
person?
people from Division 1 who work on Cosmos. But this was like before the current iteration of Cosmos. This Cosmos looks a little different. It looks like
there's a different look.
Like a precursor or like a
And I'm
going to
guess that this was the incident that had happened previously where Cosmos showed up and killed everyone.
Yes.
That's my guess. In which case, Cosmos serial number should be 000002.
Yeah, you would think.
So maybe Cosmos is an entirely different model altogether.
Unless we're doing 00000 alpha 00.
Oh yeah, there's the alpha beta.
Before you get to 1.0.
That could be it. What I think is crazy though is that so these soldiers show up to this Division 1, right? So Division 1's doing their research, they're doing the stuff with Cosmos. All of a sudden, these UTIC like people show up, and they're just like, "Hey, hands up, do what we say. No one will get hurt. Everything's fine." They wake up Cosmos, and then Cosmos kills all of them.
Yes.
And it's like, what did they think was going to happen?
Yeah.
I suppose they thought it would be safe to take the weapon, but it is so strange. I've never seen this before, where like these people show up to do like, hey, stick them up, like we're going to take the stuff, and then the thing just kills them. And it's like, they didn't plan this out. They seemed very organized. But as soon as Cosmos starts attacking, and it wasn't even guns or anything, it was like physical,
she just
like tearing everyone apart. Yeah, it was pretty horrific. But she just kills them all right away, almost as if it was nothing. And it's like, okay, what was UTIC planning? What did they think was going to happen? And like, how would they say that this operation went?
Yeah. And it's indiscriminate killing, too. It's not just the UTIC guys. It's the scientists, too. Yep. Cosmos just starts slaughtering everybody in the room.
And I don't know why, but there is one soldier person who is not slaughtered, who crawls out and who leaves. Yes. And it's Cherenkov.
Yes.
And he gets outside, and Cosmos shows up, and I guess she's probably about to kill him, but then this like Apache helicopter, what would you call it? This ship shows up and starts shooting at her, and I guess she gets distracted and forgets. Yeah. Right? Is that more or less?
Like
unless there's a reason she didn't kill him, which there may have been.
I'm not sure.
But it seems like she just kind of forgot, and that's why he was the only survivor.
Yeah, didn't Xion eventually get control over Cosmos again at the end of the scene, or am I totally misremembering that?
I don't.
Does it cut away before we?
I actually don't remember. I don't remember how it resolved. So the Cherenkov, he is wearing a mask the whole time, right? And I think it's important. Up until the end, he's got a helmet on, and so Xion wouldn't recognize him. If Xion did recognize him, there would be trouble. Sure. And so they've got a reason why she doesn't know who he is, but he was there the day that Cosmos showed up and killed everybody.
Right.
Previous Cosmos.
Right.
So that's just important to know. And I think that Xion would not be okay But then it makes me wonder if Cosmos has some recognition of who the commander is.
Yeah, that's a good question. My instinct wants to say no, but like
right, because it's a different Cosmos. But still, I probably shouldn't even call it Cosmos. But I don't know what else to call it.
Previous model.
Molto Cosmos. But at the same time, I feel like there would be they would have borrowed some of that information from the previous model to input into the new model. I don't think they started from scratch.
Yeah. So
I could be wrong.
This was a really big reveal for me. I definitely didn't see this coming, that Cherenkov was the one responsible for
that's crazy.
that attack.
Yeah, that's wild. And that it makes you see him in a different light. It's like, okay, what's he doing here? What's he doing in any of this, right? He wasn't. He was like a grunt. He wasn't like the main commander, right? How did he become this high-level commander?
On the Woglinde, yeah.
On the Woglinde. And he was a grunt in his previous job that went horribly wrong, but he's the only survivor, so I guess now you're the new commander. But I don't think he was working for the military at the time. He was working for UTIC or something like that.
Yeah.
And so there's so much mystery about his character. And also, the more I look at his face, the younger he looks. When I first saw him, just because of the white hair, I guess, I assumed he was just an older guy.
Yeah.
But the more we see him, the younger he looks. And maybe that's a personality. As his personality comes out, he's not as stable as he once seemed.
Right.
He's acting a little bit rashly. He's maybe behaving in ways that aren't like what a commander who is experienced would do.
Right.
And especially in this scene here, after he has this flashback, he pulls his gun on Cosmos and he's about to shoot her. I don't know that shooting her would have done anything, by the way.
Probably not.
She'd have just blasted him away the second he pulled the trigger. But we see him behaving in ways that maybe make me look at him and see him like as a younger character a little bit.
Yeah, so when we come back to the present out of the flashback, Cherenkov asks if the same archetype from before. If this is the same archetype from before. If it's the same KOS MOS archetype from that tragedy that happened.
Is this the same archetype?
From that accident. Yes. I mean, it doesn't look the same, so I don't know why he'd ask that, but he's clearly really concerned about it losing control.
I don't know how they're using the word archetype here. I do believe they used it in a similar way in Xenogears. But if we're talking about an archetype here, then yes, it would be the same.
Oh, sure, that type of archetype.
But if he's talking about something else, like a remnant of the former, being, which is what I'm talking about by saying that this Cosmos carries something of the previous one in her.
Yes, right.
Then I think that's what he might be referring to. Like, is this the same thing, right?
Yes.
He pulls a gun on her. Also, I have to bring up that Cosmos has the symbol, the previous Cosmos had the symbol of the Yggdrasil on her. The Y with like the circle.
Oh, yep.
That was the Yggdrasil from Xenogears.
Right. That's right.
That was great.
But he can't bring himself to pull the trigger. I thought that was interesting too. He just it's like he's shaking, he's nervous, and he just doesn't even end up doing it. So anyway, Shion is on the way down to bring him his food, right?
Yes.
She finally finds out where he is and makes it inside.
And he's holding the gun.
Yes, holding a gun to Cosmos' head. And this was really funny because she's like, oh, like what are you talking to Cosmos about? It's like, oh, nothing. But why do you have a gun?
I'm just used to carrying guns because of the job.
It's a habit or something like that.
Yeah, it's a habit because I'm a soldier. It's a habit.
And
okay, a handgun? I don't know, man. Like I get the rifle on the shoulder, but it's like, dude, a handgun in your hand, finger on the trigger,
pointed directly at her head.
Like, oh,
so
nothing.
She says,
it was a game.
You're just looking at her with a gun in your hand.
He's like, what's your problem? Big what, right? Who cares?
But once again, she seems to just kind of buy his very shady explanations. Alan is the only one who questions anything in this game so far.
It's true.
It's the only
totally
one.
True. Yeah, and what's funny too, and then there's another line here where she accepts what he says because he says, "Oh, it's a bad habit. I just carry a gun around." I don't know how well she knows him, but as far as we can see, he never has a gun in his hand ever.
No.
But okay, even when the Gnosis were attacking, he was like doing other stuff. He didn't pull out his gun. He was like trying to get rid of the Zohar, right? The emulator. So Shion brings up this great quote. She says, "Oh, I also know someone who is always carrying around a big sword with a grin on his face."
Oh yeah, I forgot that
My question
line.
Is, really?
I forgot that line.
You know someone who always carries around a big sword with a grin on his face. Have we seen this character? We will later, if not.
I'm sure we haven't yet.
That's a big... Okay, is she talking about her brother? Like, if she's talking about someone who carries a sword around and who smiles...
I think that's a good guess.
I would guess that it's her brother. It's like, oh, that dork, my brother. Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
He's always got his sword.
Didn't she say...
He's into occult, religions and stuff,
Didn't she say something about his sword collection when they were on the phone?
Oh, did she bring that up?
I vaguely remember this, but I could be totally misremembering.
That could be why I jumped to her brother. But we haven't seen her interact with anyone other than her brother that we haven't seen directly, right? So she's around the Div 1 people and okay, great, all this, but none of them carry swords around. She's talked on a phone to one guy once, and we don't know what he looks like or how he acts. So as soon as she brings up that she knows a guy, I'm like, okay, it's got to be her brother.
Yeah.
But if her brother's got a sword collection, if he's carrying around swords, and if he's got a grin on his face, that's something weird is going on there. And her brother's going to be an important character. I didn't think that until now. And I'm like, oh, shoot, her brother is somebody. Her brother's we're going to meet him later, and it's going to be, I don't know. It's going to be a surprise.
That's a good context clue to pick up on. That does sound right to me now that you say that.
Well, my son carries around a freaking sword everywhere with a grin on his face. He's 3 years old. It's like a fake sword, but I see that. I'm thinking oh yeah, just like a little brother, oh perfect. She has a little brother. How about that?
Yeah. I this note here, I think I said this out loud. So Shion says, I didn't think she would ever do something like that, in reference to Virgil being killed by friendly fire.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, really? You really never expected the KOS MOS could do something after that? After the slaughter of all the scientists? I never could have imagined KOS MOS would kill someone.
That's true.
That's
true. But I guess it's just it was a different cosmos, right? Even though she was on that team too.
Yeah.
So she had programmed the previous I guess. Maybe she was a lower level, and then just like how Cherenkov became the commander because he was the only one left, she became the team leader because she was the only one left. It could be that she had a lower job before everyone died. And then it's okay, well, you're the leader now.
The only way I can parse this statement is that UTIC coming in, they basically forced KOS MOS online as they were going to steal her. Right. They came in and told them at gunpoint, activate or awaken KOS MOS.
Which I guess is why the commander is so hesitant about a non-field tested KOS MOS, because he knows what happens when you wake it up before it's properly tested. Okay, and that's good context.
Shion might think, oh, that only happened because
I wasn't the one
activated early, and we were forced to do it. But
that kind of still happened this time, though, more or less, right? We don't know how she woke up. We don't know.
That's true.
And Shion, she was freaking. I guess she's come to terms with it now, but she was freaking out about how KOS MOS just woke up out of nowhere, and now she's like, "Oh, it's no big. It's all good, right?" Yeah. Even though KOS MOS woke up out of nowhere and then kills Virgil, and she's still just defending KOS MOS and saying, "Oh, everything's fine."
I don't know how this could have happened.
To some extent, KOS MOS is her child, right? And it's oh, my perfect angel child, right? But we've seen her inner thoughts, and she should be a lot more shook up about this.
Yeah. Okay, so then we cut back to Ziggy. It seems like at this point they've lost their pursuers. They haven't really, because we're going to come back and they're going to be chased again. But at this point, it seems like they've lost them. And Momo is wanting to go to 5th Jerusalem, where I'm suspecting she knows that her mother is at.
Yeah, mother or father. I think they're on this council. I think they're all on something
the
like
space station, 5th Jerusalem, right? Yeah.
Because this is where she tells him, don't bring her here.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming that's why Momo wants to go there. She knows about that. And then Ziggy tells her they're not going there, that they're going to be going to 2nd Miltia. And she's
sad.
Extremely disappointed by this. Yeah. There's definitely something going on there. She understands probably why her mother doesn't want to see her. Yeah. And it's just it's striking her in that moment.
But she won't keep down her optimism, right? She still thinks that oh, they love me. They're going to take me back. It's just
someday.
Someday it's going to happen. Is it now? Is it now? Just like a dog. Anytime I walk to my closet, my dog thinks I'm getting its leash so it can go for a walk. Every time. It's like 30 times I go there, and I'm like, no leash, dude. You're not doing it. But the 31st time, he'll get excited again, and it's like, okay, you're lucky. This time it is the leash. But dude, come on. Like,
not every time.
Not every time. But so she gets excited, but my gut tells me that she hasn't seen her parents in a long time.
Yeah.
Like they made her, she's too powerful or something. She's been kept away all the time, and she doesn't really get to be around her parents. Mm-hmm. And so, but despite that, she has the childish innocence of assuming that they're going to come get her any day now.
Right.
And that's a very, very childlike. It's so funny because we don't know how old she is. She's a Realian.
Well, if it's an anime, right? I'm guessing she's probably 5,000.
Exactly. She's probably 5,000 years old. Okay, 4,000. How long is the game in the future?
Oh, it's 4,000.
Yeah,
years,
Momo was made in 2022, and it's So 4,000.
We're joking, of course. We know cyborgs existed before Realians did. Anyway.
Yeah, we're not stupid. but real quick, Momo could easily be like 100 years old, right?
Sure.
That's more or less what we're positing, the possibility.
Well, maybe not, though, because you have the
new
scientists who created her.
And that was pretty recent, right? Because she's like a new prototype-ish, possible new Realian kind of thing.
Yeah, maybe she could actually be fairly young, maybe teenage. Maybe she's as old as she looks. I don't know.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, we just don't know that, I guess. We are revealed the name of the woman who leads the council here. Her name is Julie Mizrahi.
Yuli, I think they pronounce
Yuli,
it.
okay.
Or Huli or something like that.
Oh, very nice, very nice. Well, that makes sense, actually, because Mizrahi is a Jewish word, right? And so the J in, Hebrew is more of a Y, right? So I guess that makes sense. She also has the same symbol, the same alchemical snitch symbol on her back.
Momo has.
Momo has, yeah. And so it must just be the Mizrahi symbol. It must just be the Mizrahi company logo.
It's like a family sort of,
Yeah.
The Mizrahi.
Because
sigil.
she's Momo's mom, and then her husband is the owner of the company.
Yeah,
that makes Momos.
Yochim Mizrahi.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Right. So we cut to that council again. I've seen. There was a lot of dialogue I took down here. This is a very heavy scene expositionally, I feel.
Okay.
So there's kind of a lot to go through. Okay, so they're talking about where they're transporting Momo and why, to Second Miltia and everything. One of the people on the council asks if Yuli really thinks the Y data is stored within that Realian.
The Y data.
The Y data. So keeping a pin in that.
I think
go ahead.
I thought of something along the lines of chromosomes XY, something like that. Just like a genetic thing.
Sure. Then we get this line. We have conclusive evidence that she holds the code to unlock the UMN transfer gate, leading to the sealed off sector. Aside from that, she's pretty much a mystery. We'll just have to open her up and see.
See, this is where the UMN is so mysterious to me, because it stands for the Jungian idea, the unus mundus, right? But at the same time, it kind of functions just like the internet, right? It's just the way they send information back and forth. But the more we learn about it, the more it's like, okay, it is kind of its own thing, though, right? The UMN isn't just the internet. It's like an unseen pathway through which they can send things, but that into which they have not explored all areas.
Well, this is what they use to gate jump too.
The UMN.
Yes.
See,
so when
it's
their
different than I
ships
thought.
Gate jump, they're using the UMN to do that. And so there was that pocket of space in that scene earlier. They were kind of crossing, and they had to get to the other side before they could gate jump again.
But it's the UMN that does the gates.
Yes.
Yeah, that's crazy. I didn't know that.
So I'll read this line again. We have conclusive evidence that she holds the code to unlock the UMN transfer gate leading to the sealed off sector.
Okay, then there you go. That makes sense.
There's some transfer gate that they can't use that leads to some sealed off sector of space.
Ooh.
And apparently Momo has the code to open that specific transfer gate. And so they're saying we're going to have to open her up and see if she has this Y data or whatever.
It leads to the gnosis.
Yeah.
That's what I'm going to say.
Okay, so another line I took down. If she doesn't have it, we'll be required to delay the Zohar project. How will we explain that to the council? Another line. Even if it's lost, we still have one other lead. Let me pull up my documents. This image, I think this is Yuli speaking at this point, this image was processed from the only remaining surveillance camera. The picture's unclear, but that boy served as Joachim's assistant. Judging from the time frame, we believe he was somehow involved with the Y data. Where did that boy come from? The records are missing. The only information we have is that he was 14 and studying at the University of Borneo. Or Borneo? Yeah, Borneo. But even that's just secondhand information from Mizrahi. So there's some boy that they have surveillance of working with Joachim Mizrahi, who they think is an alternate lead to Momo for figuring out whatever this code is, who worked with Joachim Mizrahi on previous experiments or whatever.
And it's somebody... but they showed the surveillance. I remember seeing something, but I couldn't tell who it was.
Yeah, I mean, and they even say here, like, it's unclear. The picture's unclear.
Right,
we can't really tell who he is. We just know he's a boy who was this age, who's studying at this university.
I was thinking, like, Chaos, but...
That's exactly what I was thinking, too.
There is another character we meet a little later on that could also be it as well, though. So it's like, well, we'll see.
Yeah, like, I thought of Chaos right away.
Yeah, because Chaos looks younger and seems like... There's some mystery about Chaos that is unknown, so this could be that.
So then we get, they say if the boy was still alive, he'd be 28 years old. Chaos certainly doesn't look 28 years old.
No.
Age is always, like, relative in anime, so you never freaking know how old
28.
someone is. Characters that are old men are like 32.
Like Satan. Yeah. So this is interesting. I don't know how old any of the characters are.
No, I don't either.
And so that info doesn't mean much, which is fine. I'm not criticizing the writing. It's just it's very, very mysterious because how old is Shion? How long has she been around? I can't tell. You can't tell just by looking at anime characters how old they are.
No, never. But basically, it's just establishing that this was 14 years ago that this boy disappeared.
Which is when the Miltia thing happened, right?
Right. The tragedy at Miltia, I think, happened 14 years ago.
Around that same time. From a company with a name, the name of, the name that we had just... Gagnon. The Kukai.
Kukai.
That's what I'm talking about. Right? Yeah, which is the same,
Okay, so another quote here. This research paper is on the secondary effects of the Hilbert wave. And they start to sort of wonder about if this boy somehow made his way into Vector, into the company.
Ooh.
Like infiltrated it somehow.
Oh, wait. So it could be like one of the Vector people.
Ooh, fetching nose.
Who's 28? Who we got? We got Kevin. We've got Alan, and I don't know the names of anyone else.
Shion, but Shion's a girl.
Could be her, but she may have a history that she has amnesia and doesn't remember.
They say the picture's unclear, so I don't know. Maybe they assume it's a boy. I don't know.
I don't know. Anyways,
I don't know why Chaos.
That's interesting.
We both seem to think that, but I don't know. Chaos is not in.
Just because Chaos is so mysterious, and if anyone has some abilities to like open a gate, it's like Chaos, man. I don't know of any other character that has anywhere near that level of like mystery and potential around them, other than Chaos in this game. Where it's like Chaos, we don't know the limits of his power.
Right. Yeah. But he's not in Vector, so that kind of leads me to think it's probably not him.
Yeah, that's probably true.
So back when UTIC was still the Mizrahi Cerebral Sciences Research Center, so UTIC used to be a Mizrahi organization for research. Mizrahi's main patron was none other than Vector. It's certainly a possibility. So they're saying that it's possible this kid got into Vector because Vector was the main patron of Mizrahi's Science Research Center.
Interesting.
So that's a secondary lead to someone who could possibly get them this code that they need to unlock this transfer gate. Okay. Then we cut back to the ship again. Shion and Alan are talking to each other here. She says, "Wow, Alan, I'm surprised. You're usually so hard-headed with your logic and preconceptions, so I was a little worried that you'd become like one of those Wells aliens." I thought that was interesting, that the call to Wells.
Yeah, they brought it back. And who is this to? This was talking to who?
Shion's talking to Alan here.
Alan, yeah.
"Wow, Alan, I'm surprised. You're usually so hard-headed with your logic and preconceptions, so I was a little worried that you'd become like one of those Wells aliens." I don't know what Wells aliens are in this world.
We'll
There's
find out.
Probably a database on it.
Right. Yes. I'm sure there is. A well.
So she goes back to the bridge, and they're having some kind of malfunction with a part of the ship called a catapult. And she agrees or volunteers to go down and have a look at it, being somebody who has the technical know-how to, I guess, fix that. So they tell her to, go down there and check it out. She approaches it expecting what might be wrong about it, but she doesn't see anything. And so she turns around, starts walking away. She looks back one more time, doesn't see anything wrong, walks away, and then we start to see kind of like an electrical spark or something, indicating something really is wrong with this part.
Yep.
A little bit of a foreshadow there. So she returns to the bridge as the crew is paying a fee to make a gate jump to the motion system. So I guess UMN is also something you have to pay to access.
There must
like
be
a
governance. Road. Yeah, there must be a governance. It may be a company. Who knows? Yeah,
it's like you're taxed for using this sort of system for gate jumping, right? So they're about to do that. Then we cut again back to Ziggy and Momo, and now they're being chased again in hyperspace. They're in the hyperspace tunnel, and they're being pursued, being shot at. So as the Elsa with the crew goes into hyperspace, they're like caught from behind almost by this battle and passed by. So we quickly cut back to Shion yelling at someone about her orders being unacceptable. You remember this scene?
Yes, I do. Yeah, it was a guy. He ends up listening to her. Well, but I can't remember exactly what it was about.
There was like a receptionist that she's talking to first, and she's like freaking just screaming at this girl about the orders she had been given, which are to take KOS MOS to second Miltia and turn it over.
Yes, and she's saying no.
Totally unacceptable. There's no way I'm doing that. So she's like, she Karens it a little bit. I want to talk to the director.
Yep.
Right?
And they seem to know each other. She knows who that guy is.
They work together.
I
would assume. And he basically says, like,
like,
what's the big deal? This was the plan all along.
Yes.
So this is not like some out of the blue order.
Right.
Like from the beginning, you understood. Like once we get KOS MOS online, she's to be taken to the second division at that point, and that they're on second Miltia. Like this is what's supposed to happen. Like, what's your problem?
And I guess because KOS MOS was woken up early because of the attack, because KOS MOS killed Virgil and all this stuff. Shion is thinking, like, the plans have to change, right?
Yeah.
We can't keep the current plan.
Right. And so she's explaining that he's not accepting it. She is insisting so much that eventually he just kind of gives in.
Right? It's funny.
He's just like, fine, like, because he'll explain it in perfectly reasonable terms.
Yeah.
And then she'll just say, "Director," and he's like, "What?" Like, blah blah blah. And he'll like explain it again, and like anytime he kind of corners her with this, like, this is how it's supposed to go. She just goes, "But director," and he's like, "Oh my gosh, like, fine, like, what do you suggest? Like, what do you want to do?" So she's just insisting something is wrong with KOS MOS. Like, this is not normal. This is not going according to the plan. I can't turn her over yet.
And if KOS MOS goes to a place with lots of people, the potential collateral could be devastating.
Right.
Yeah.
So, she's insisting there is something wrong, and I have to figure that out first before we can move on to the second
She is seeing these little hints of things that are happening where she'll make the comment, like, I didn't program that. Like, wait, how do you know this? Or where did you get that? Or where did you learn this? Or why are you doing this?
Right.
And she's saying, I didn't program that. So she's noticing that there's some other hands involved in Cosmos that weren't her, and that bothers her because she was overseeing the project.
Yeah. Okay, so I liked how at the end of that though, right? Shion had been like totally yelling at everybody. The receptionist kind of comes back on like, "Ooh, wow, you really like took it to him and like got your way or whatever." And she's all nice to her now, like, "Yeah, it's all good." Like they knew each other, like they know each other, right?
Yeah, it's like she had worked there first and then come over to Vector, something like that.
The girl on the intercom also says that she hadn't noticed Alan standing there.
I know, that was so funny. I loved that. And they're just like, you just kind of have no presence, like nobody notices you.
Yep. I laughed at that.
It's very funny.
That was funny.
I mean, it's sad, but it's the comic relief of the game, and it works.
It really worked for this scene, I felt.
Yeah.
Okay, so then the crew comes upon this battle with Ziggy. They run back to the bridge and everything. Ziggy's ship is kind of like zooms right by. They're kind of caught in the fire from the ships behind that are pursuing. And Matthews has to make a choice here about whether he wants to help or like stay like out of it. And I really liked this because at first he seems to be more or less trying to be like, this isn't our business or whatever, right? Just like let it go.
Yeah.
But what happens is that reinforcements like continually appear.
And they're shooting at his ship too, like
yes.
indiscriminately. Like they're just destroying stuff.
Yes.
And he's like, we're not going to make it out.
Yeah. So he just gets pissed.
Yeah.
And he's just like, fine, like
it's great.
We'll get involved here. So they kind of start shooting down some of these ships to help Ziggy out. But Ziggy's ship does take a hard hit, like a direct hit.
Yeah.
Sends it tumbling towards kind of the hyperspace wall where he's hitting it and he's sort of like accepting death at this point for I don't know how many times he's done this at this point.
Right, yeah.
If we think back to, last episode and everything we learned about him. But Momo kind of does too. It's like they both kind of just like, oh, you tried your best.
This might be it. Gosh, what would happen to someone along the lines of Momo who doesn't maybe do aliens need oxygen?
It's a good question.
I don't know. Like it's like, are they bodies or are they mostly robots?
I think the bigger issue is if you get ejected into hyperspace and you fall through that wall, you like cease to exist.
You're shredded into a trillion atoms. Okay. Sure. Gotcha. But I was thinking maybe the reason why they're so calm is because both of them can technically survive in space.
Yes.
I
think so.
Yeah.
But they get rescued at the last second. They get grabbed by the Elsa and kind of brought on.
But the Elsa can't close, and so you have this battle.
Yeah, there's like a malfunction with the door. I think it's the catapult is what they were called. That is the thing, that malfunction that she was supposed to be going to fix. And so they can't close the deck. There's some kind of electrical problem. So they get in safely, but so do the enemies. So Ziggy and Momo get in, but some enemies get in as well. And so the setup for this action scene, and it's pretty long. Like there's a lot of battles. There's a lot of like the parties are separate, and you control this one for a while, then you control this one for a while until they rendezvous, and then they fight together as you're just fighting a bunch of dudes. The idea is that there's some kind of like generator. What was the actual term that they used? So once they actually meet up, Ziggy explains that the enemy's fleet mothership has a transport unit, so the enemies will just keep on coming until the mothership is destroyed.
Okay.
So it's like you're going to have endless waves of enemies attacking you because there is a ship here that's like, I guess, teleporting basically more ships.
Oh, into hyperspace?
Into hyperspace.
Crazy.
That's some really crazy technology right there.
Man. Wow.
So anyway, it's you just until they destroy that mothership. So that's kind of the whole scenario of the action sequence. They got to destroy that ship so that the enemies will stop like showing up in endless waves to chase them. Did you take any notes during like that section? It's because it's a long section of the game, so it took a little while to get through. But I
don't have many notes. I don't have many notes. No, it was interesting. It was fun. A hyperspace battle is pretty cool. I don't know that I've heard of that much in sci-fi, so that's fun.
Yeah. So my next note is once everyone is safe, we get a scene in the mess hall where Shion
Yes.
asks about whether Momo came from the Mizrahi labs.
Mm-hmm.
And Momo answers that yes, she did, and nearly says that she's a 100 series unit.
Yes,
but
so
catches herself.
she does this multiple times in this conversation. She'll start talking and then she'll look at Ziggy.
Yeah.
And Ziggy will nod or,
Yeah.
like
give approval.
it's so funny. They have this this like trust, this relationship that is it's not just superficial in that they only have known each other for 20 minutes or however long that they've been together.
Right.
An hour or two. Right? It's like she really trusts him a lot. And she's relying on him to know whether or not she's allowed to say what she's going to say.
Yeah.
Right. And they seem really fun together.
Yeah.
Like they seem like a brother sister, just like a combo that was, made for each other.
They've done a really good job of kind of establishing that bond or connection between them, even though they've just recently met. It's still very convincing.
I think so. Yeah. And especially with Ziggy, that she gave him his little puppy name. And he calls her by her, the special name for her dad.
Yeah.
And they kind of know each other's past, but they can relate in an interesting way. Because while they may have opposite problems, that he's trying to escape being human and she's trying to become more human, they understand. It's almost like for the same reasons, right? Like they understand each other really well, but their conclusions are opposite. But they have this it kind of like connects them together, that they both have this, I don't feel right. Yeah, with whatever's going on in my body.
I'm not comfortable in my own skin or with my own sort of like species identity.
Yes.
I don't know what to call it.
Yeah, species identity. Oh, jeez. I don't know.
I don't really know what to call it, but they're not comfortable with who they are. They want to be something else.
Right. And if they could just swap places, that'd be perfect.
Yeah, seriously. So anyway, she kind of catches herself, but
yeah.
Shion knows all about the 100 series units, and she even brings up, so you're a 100 series observer. She tells him, you don't have to be worried about talking to me about this stuff. Like you're fine, you're safe.
Yeah.
But then she says, so you're a 100 series observational unit from the Mizrahi lab, a Hilbert-equipped model, right? So Shion is aware.
Shion knows
that there's 100 series operational units that were equipped with this Hilbert effect. So Shion knows all about her.
So while Momo is special among the 100 series, she isn't the only 100 series.
Yes,
it seems like there are
I
others.
think so.
Yeah, but she's just special there's something special about her that we don't know 100% yet, but she's not. It's not the fact that she's a 100 series that makes her special.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, there was that other girl that we saw very briefly at the end of their escape sequence.
Yeah, it looked just like her.
Just like Momo.
Yeah, maybe different
hair. I'm assuming
hair.
another 100 series unit.
That's what I'm assuming.
However,
yes.
I think you're right in saying that there's something special in particular about her, because why would they be so intent on capturing her if they have another 100
And it's like,
series
I want
unit?
what's in your head, right? So
it's the Y data.
The person in her head, yeah.
It's the Y data that they're after.
Yeah, so she's a special 100 series. I was assuming that, the 100 series is a new prototype. She doesn't seem to be a prototype. It's a different situation going on. Also, Cosmos is a waitress. She's just walking around serving people food. And
yes.
That's just great. Great use of the most powerful atomic bomb ever invented by mankind. It's like, hey, give me a Coke. One Coke, please. Hold the ice.
Root beer float, dude.
Yeah, root beer float.
Hit me up.
And then Shion also mentions the insignia on Momo's clothes and says, "Oh, that's the Mizrahi lab."
Oh, right.
So that's what that sign means, right? So it's unique to her, but it's not unique to her. It does say a lot about her, but it's going to also be applicable to the labs as a whole, to whatever the labs are doing, whatever their goal is.
Yeah. They also find out as they're talking to them that Momo and Ziggy are also on the way to Second Miltia, so we're all going to the same place.
Yeah, how convenient, right?
Very convenient.
Everything's kind of converging.
Yeah. So first, before they go there, they have to stop by a nearby dock colony for repairs and refueling. They were just in a battle and they took some hits. Yeah. So they're going to stop there first. Shion takes Zimmy and Momo on a tour of the ship.
Oh yeah, that's fun.
Remember that part?
Yeah, that's fun.
The only thing that I really wanted to take note of from those conversations as they were going from room to room and talking, there's a couple things that stood out to me. So Momo is asking about whether KOS MOS has dreams or what kind of dreams she has.
Ooh.
She says, after being active for a set amount of time, she sleeps here. This is Shion speaking. And her data is uploaded to the company headquarters. I can also feed back the activity data to update the OS. And this is where Momo says, so KOS MOS sleeps too? And Shion says, yes, even if I disconnected her from the outside world, her central systems remain active. And Momo's response to that is, I wonder what kinds of dreams she sees. The only reason that sticks out to me is because having played Xenogears, Carl Jung and dream interpretation.
Dreams, Freud, yep, all that.
That's all sort of like something I could foresee maybe being topics they'll dive into a little bit here. Where does KOS MOS go when she sleeps? I don't know if this is a mystery they're really setting up or if it's just an offhanded comment from an ignorant little girl Realian 100 series unit.
It's a great question, though. I mean, especially as it relates to something like artificial intelligence. Like, what will it dream about?
Right.
Like, what's it doing when we think it's not watching or when we're not watching it, right?
Right.
It's doing something.
Yeah.
Because dreams aren't just random events; they're purposeful. Like there's a reason why we dream at night. It's not just for no reason, right? And Carl Jung's idea about dreams in general is that it's like a personal myth. So he would say that a myth is a culture's collective dream. That's what Carl Jung would say.
Because wasn't his theory you basically tap into the collective unconscious
something
when you
like
dream?
that. Yes, exactly. And everybody kind of unconsciously brings their dreams to each other when they in just normal conversation. They'll give hints and ideas and symbols and things just without even realizing it that other people then take. And then when they dream that night, then they'll have those types of things will be in their dreams.
Right.
It's something that spreads, and it's like it's a evolutionary thing that goes way back in nature. But also, if you can assume that a dream, a collective dream, is something like a myth, because those are the symbols that make sense for all these people that live together, then an individual dream would be like kind of a personal myth, right? Like your own kind of story that you live in, and that comes into your dreams, and that is kind of gives you a little bit of an intuition as to your purpose. Why are you doing anything, right? And then the dream kind of lets you intuit that a little bit through your subconscious. But if give me a sec, KOS MOS. If KOS MOS is dreaming, then it means that she is like living in a story, basically. That there's a myth, there's an archetype, there's a hero's journey that's going on at night that people tend not to be maybe as so much aware of, but that she will be acting in accordance with some type of purpose, not necessarily just according to her programming, because the dreams will slowly develop into something that resembles a story. Yeah. Anyways, I don't know if that's where this is going, but that's the idea. I don't
either. Yeah. But I just had a feeling that line was not just a throwaway line from a sort of childlike or naive character. Oh, does the robot dream? I think
it's a big deal.
I felt like they were they're hinting, foreshadowing going somewhere with when KOS MOS goes into the maintenance bed, something important is happening.
Sure.
When she's connected to, I'm guessing, the UMN.
Yes.
And receiving new data, having access to the system.
Yeah, that's right.
Collective unconscious sort of, access. Something, I feel like there's something there.
I think so.
We'll have to wait and see, I guess.
I think so. Just the fact that Momo even asked is like, does Momo dream?
That's a good question.
Like, I didn't even think of this question, but as soon as she mentions it, I'm like, that's a deep question, man.
Yeah.
That's a deep question. Like, do ants dream? Like I don't know. What does and does not dream?
It's a good question.
And then as it relates to maybe an artificial made person, do they dream, right? Mm-hmm. And if the answer is yes, then that's difficult for whoever programmed them.
Yes.
Because dreams is basically programming. You're programming yourself, right? You will start to learn behaviors and you will start to become programmed in your dreams in a way that the programmers don't have any input in.
Right.
Right. So you'll start to come up with your own stuff, and you're making connections and seeing these things, and that's dangerous for something as powerful as KOS MOS, for sure.
Right. So that's the end of my notes for this week. I think we're going to try to get through more game per episode moving forward.
Yeah.
We've kind of gotten through like the big intro sequences.
I think so. Although the very next cutscene after we stopped here is just brand new characters and brand new storylines, brand new everything. We get introduced to the Durandal.
Yeah. So, I mean, this game is serving as kind of act one of a 3-act story, I guess. So
yeah.
This is going to be mostly introduction, world building. There's going to be kind of
for the
probably
whole game.
A lot to chew on. But I'm hoping we can move through a little faster. I'm just going to look real quickly through our Patreon live stream comments here as we wrap up. For those of you who aren't aware, we are live streaming these as we record them now.
Yeah.
And our $10 plus patrons they're invited to a private live stream where they get to view these as we are recording them, and they can ask us questions. And we're not always going to get to them, but in this case, I think we have a little time to kind of look at some of the comments and see if we can respond to some people. Okay, so this is from Aiden Uzuki. The database is pretty integral. Same with the third game. The Species Preservation Act came after the Life Recycling Law, or rather because of the Life Recycling Law. So the Life Recycling Act or Life Recycling Law was the bad one. The Species Preservation Act is what addressed that.
Okay.
I know we had touched on that earlier. I'm sure that we maybe misspoke about which one was which or something like that.
Did. Yeah, I probably did.
He's talking about the archetype. So this is Aiden again. This early KOS MOS is called the archetype instead of a prototype, interestingly enough. So we were talking about different archetypes. Is this the same archetype as before? That's the word I was thinking of. I was thinking in my brain prototype. But no, archetype is not the same word. So he's saying that the early KOS MOS, the one that slaughtered everybody, was called the archetype. So that's interesting.
Well, archetypes are... The book that Carl Jung's big breakthrough work is called Archetypes of the Collective Unconscious.
Yeah,
so, talking about Cosmos being part of the collective unconscious in some way, I mean, there you go, right?
Yeah. Drake Chandler says, I guess it's easy for them to laugh off, but they're hitting on every point of why I hate Shion.
Oh, no! Okay. I don't think she's that bad. I don't.
I can see why someone would feel that way to a person like her in real life.
Yeah.
Because she seems to not be very socially aware. She seems to be condescending. She seems to be not very tactful.
Sure.
From time to time. It's not to a degree that makes me like irritated enough to hate her yet.
Not yet.
But there are a lot of people that don't like this character. So, I mean, there's an example right there, I guess. Let's see. Oh, Drake goes on to explain, for me it wasn't her inability to relate with people, but Kaysen hit it when he thought Shion would be more shook up about KOS MOS's atrocities. That she should be, or, whatever it might be. Yeah. She doesn't seem to be...
She was when it happened, but she's just...
I guess
she's past it now, right?
Okay, so we haven't played the game, these people have. Right. I got the impression from the scene where KOS MOS killed Virgil that Shion showed an adequate level of shock, disgust.
Yes.
There.
At the moment, yes.
Where it doesn't come through is when she's talking to Alan about don't cry over spilled milk. Right? Yes, so it's like it doesn't jive. And I feel like it's just that she's kind of an awkward person more so than it is that she's heartless or... that she doesn't care about these people or something like that, right? Drake says Ziggy and Momo is my favorite relationship in the series.
I like it so far. It's just a brother-sister thing. It's fun.
The foundation of it so far is really good. And I was going to say that earlier. These are my favorite characters in the game so far, these two. I really like their dynamic together. Aiden says, I like how if you talk to KOS MOS while she's washing dishes on the Elsa... She's washing the dishes.
Put her to work, man. Put her to work.
She says that the power output has to be precise to do it.
Oh, so she doesn't break it?
Yes.
She smash the dishes. I like that. That's funny, man. That's great.
Well, there's a couple of parts like right before they go to fight during the attack, like right when they're trying to save Ziggy and Momo. Yeah. I remember she's saying, Shion tells her like reduce her power on purpose.
Yeah, so that you don't shoot through the hole, right? So you don't shoot holes in the ship, which will just kill everyone.
Right.
So she's like, yeah, I'll drop down to 30%, right?
Yeah, 30% is the number she gives. So, yeah, that was interesting. So she's doing that even for tasks as menial as washing dishes. She's got to be very precise about her power output, or otherwise she'll destroy stuff. Chris Gewen says, do androids dream of electric sheep? That's a book I still haven't read yet.
Is that a book?
Want to read it. Yeah, it's like it's one of those classic sci-fi novels.
Interesting.
So, yeah, thank you for reminding me. I got to, like, download that book and read it.
Well.
Okay, so Aiden, you might need to, if you're still here, explain what you mean by this. He says, these kinds of conversations are part of the reason that I get upset when people say Xenosaga has nothing to offer. I don't know. I've never met anybody who says that, but I mean, I'm not doubting that that happens. It's just, I've had a couple of people who have expressed to me some sort of, it seems to be an anxiety. Probably from like Xenogears purists or elitists, right?
People who just wish that story could have continued instead of this new one. Yeah,
sure. That Xenosaga, they sort of denigrate Xenosaga. I guess I did get that a sense of that a little bit from, not to the extent that he's talking about, but I could see why people might get nervous about us coming to that conclusion because of how like Pat Holloman and the guys from Retrograde Amnesia talked about Xenosaga towards the end of our Xenogears podcast. They clearly they don't love it.
Oh, okay.
Right. Or they have problems with it, or they have criticisms, or there are certain things about it that bother them.
I don't remember that actually.
And so I think that I can see where people are coming from, where there may be people who are, I'm not saying Pat or the retrograde guys are. I'm saying I can see where there might be some people who just crap on Xenosaga and this isn't as good as Xenogears for X, Y, and Z reason, and it's got nothing to offer or whatever it might be. But I'm not finding that to be the case.
No, I actually really like the game so far, and while Xenogears might be like a top 5 game for me, like ever, that doesn't mean that Xenosaga can't still be a very, very, very good game despite not being top 5. Like it's almost irrelevant when you just compare the games to each other.
Sure.
Especially if one was super good and the other one was only really good. It's like, okay, but that doesn't mean it's bad, right? Anyways, I'm liking the game so far. I like it a lot.
I do too. Like, I have Xenoblade 3 sitting in my Switch right now.
Oh, do you?
And I was just talking to, I think it was Mozzie here the other day on Patreon live streams on our Discord channel, private Discord channel. He's like, Mike, have you played more of it? And I was like, no, I haven't. And he's like, Mike, come on, like you gotta play it. And it's like, I sat down last night specifically because I had the conversation to play a little bit more Xenoblade, and I found that. I just wanted to play Xenosaga instead.
Oh, really?
I wanted to. I'm kind of hooked into Xenosaga right now.
The story is very fascinating. And it's getting deeper and deeper, and I'm starting to really, really want to know the answer to these mysteries.
Yeah. And so because I'm already sort of invested the energy into these hooks at the moment, like I'm not ready to sort of like get new ones for a new game yet. Like I kind of have to see this one through first, I feel like, before I can really jump into Xenoblade 3. So anyway, I mean, that's to say, I guess, in a long-winded way, I really like what we're playing so far. I'm enjoying Xenosaga quite a lot. Aiden is saying, yeah, there are people that like Xenogears only, and I don't think any of these games are above criticism, but I don't think these games contain nothing of value.
Yeah. Exactly, that's the point.
Anybody who says Xenosaga contains nothing of value is just straight up trolling. There's no reason to think that.
Yeah.
I mean, just on the premise that it's going to be going over a lot of the same themes as Xenogears, it doesn't have nothing to offer.
Right.
Especially for people who have not played Xenogears before and they played Xenosaga first.
Oh, exactly. Yeah.
It's got tons to offer. It's a crazy sentiment, crazy thing to say.
Yeah.
Okay, Dude McGuy is saying, I think a lot of the aversion to Xenosaga is the pacing with very long scenes with so much exposition.
Yeah, but we don't mind that so much.
Not only that.
Not in this book club, we don't.
Why are people upset about it here, but like everybody loves Metal Gear Solid so much? It's not like... I mean, would you say the cutscenes in this game are like significantly longer than Metal Gear Solid?
Well...
I mean, the game's longer.
Every now and then you do get a cutscene that asks you to save in the middle of it, and then you get more cutscenes. I don't know that happened in Metal Gear, but like for the most part, no. For the most part, it's just a ton of dialogue back and forth. Now, this game, Metal Gear is just a shorter game.
Yeah.
But in terms of like percentage-wise, I think the ratio is about the same.
It's at least close. It's at least comparable. Like,
yeah.
And nobody, like, well, people complain about it when we get to like Metal Gear Solid 4, but I'm talking about the original Metal Gear Solid, which everybody loves, right? Everybody loves Metal Gear Solid. No one complains about the long cutscenes; they think it's awesome. Yet, I mean, I don't know. Maybe the problem isn't the length of the cutscenes; is this interesting enough to justify being as long as it is? I would say yes. So far, I've not had a problem with it at all.
Oh, absolutely. I don't know how long this game is though. At the moment, it's great.
He goes on to say, those Xenogears doesn't always have the best gameplay story pacing either, but you feel slow pacing more in games with voice acting because the scenes take longer.
Yeah, that's true, actually. That's a good point.
Yeah.
So it feels like it's dragging because you have to listen. That's a good point.
Aiden saying, I feel like you'll appreciate Xenoblade 3 even more after you beat Xenosaga. That's the reason why I want to do it, because I love I love in particular Xenoblade Chronicles 1. And so I would love to get through Xenosaga as a series on this podcast before we touch Xenoblade games, because I feel like I will have kind of a renewed perspective on them after having beaten the Xeno pantheon that came before it.
Yeah. Good.
Okay, I'll take this last question and then we'll wrap up. This comes from Karnak. How are you enjoying the tone of the soundtrack? I really enjoy Mitsuda's work on this one, and it supplements the story quite well.
I think it's good, but I don't have a ton of notes on the soundtrack itself. I am kind of missing a lot of it because I'm just not... It's not... Here you go. It's not getting in the way.
Yes.
It's not becoming obnoxious.
Yes.
Like, it's actually... It sits in the perfect place to where I don't actually notice it, but it does its job and that I feel the emotions, right?
Sure.
But at the moment, I don't really have much to comment on that.
Yeah. I kind of feel the same. I was just listening to it a little more closely because I was editing the episode that's going to be going up next week.
Yeah.
And so, I downloaded the soundtrack and I'm kind of listening to it. And there are certain tracks I think are really, really good. Like the music during like the Gnosis attack sequence, I think is really excellent.
Yeah.
The very beginning game, like the opening FMV cutscene, like the music there is very cinematic and cool. And then there will be a track like here or there that'll just like really almost like nails on a chalkboard, almost like just like sting my ears, like the battle.
Oh, really?
I just don't like the battle music at all.
I got you.
I really don't like it. And there are other people who in Discord and in the comments been, oh, I love this one, it's great, and blah blah blah. And I don't know, it's not for me. I just don't like this battle, and that's too bad. It's really too bad when that track in an RPG happens to be the one you don't like.
Because it's the one you'll hear.
You'll hear the most.
Yeah, almost like half of the game. That's what the track that we'll be playing.
And it's even made worse by the fact that there is no unique boss music. There's no secondary battle music at all. It's just that one. So that hurts the soundtrack significantly for me. I would say of all Mitsuda's work that I've listened to, this is probably my least favorite, but that doesn't mean it's bad. It's just, it's not standing out to me like Chrono Trigger. Certain tracks on Chrono Cross, my goodness, are they good. Like the song that plays in the ending credits of Chrono Cross, like it brings a tear to my eye, and I don't even necessarily have a special like affinity for that game.
Really?
Like I don't love Chrono Cross to death. It's good. I don't love it, but like when I hear that music, it's just like, dude, that's good. I don't like Xenoblade 2. It's no secret I don't like that game. I listen to the soundtrack all the time. The soundtrack is freaking like masterful. So I love Mitsuda's work. This one, I would say, is probably not my favorite. Probably my least favorite of all that I've heard of his work so far. Okay. I think we're going to leave it off there.
All right.
Appreciate you guys. Appreciate everybody tuning in. If you like the show, please take a look at our Patreon or Subscribestar links in the description. It allows us to keep the show going. I really like kind of the direction we're moving right now because we have this cool thing, right? It's going to save us a lot of time in editing, and I have some plans to kind of get some other videos back on track, and I feel like getting some momentum with moving the channel in the direction I want to move it. So your support is what makes that possible. So thank you to everyone who does, and if you appreciate what we're doing, please check that out. Till next week. Peace out.